Thanks very much and welcome to Community Environment Board, everyone. So as usual, we'll start with the evacuation procedure. There's a location plan of the exits and the assembly points situated on the doors of this room. Please familiarise yourselves with it. On discovering a fire, please carry out the following: sound the alarm, attack the fire if possible and safe to do so using the appliances provided. On hearing the evacuation signal, please carry out the following: exit the building by your nearest safest exit, all visitors to report to Assembly Point G, all staff to report to their designated Assembly Point on Woolpack Way car park. Do not leave the Assembly Point for any reason until told to do so by the incident controller or the fire brigade officer, and the officer in charge today will be Mr. Maxine, sitting in the back. I think he's the senior officer. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. So apologies for absence. We've got apologies from Councillor Jones, substitute Councillor Simmons, welcome, Councillor Simmons. Apologies from Councillors Les Smith and apologies from Councillor Chambers. Are there any others? Thank you. Let's move on then. Disclosures of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests, anyone? Thank you. Public participation, are we being notified of anything? No, thank you very much. So we move straight on then to the minutes of the meeting of the board held on the 14th of March. You've got them in front of you. I'm not intending to go through them page by page. Anybody got any comments either on the accuracy or anything they wish to raise? If there's silence, I'll take that as agreeing, although he probably has to propose. So can we have a proposal for the minutes, to accept the minutes? Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Second, thank you, Councillor Parker. So I'll just sign those then. So, thanks very much. So we move on then to agenda item 6, which is the Leisure Services Improvement Plan. And I'll just ask Simon if you will say a few words of introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just 30 seconds from myself, really. The board will recall that it approved a new service improvement plan for the current financial year. A copy of that plan is attached as Appendix A, and in that is detailed the activity that Russell and his team have undertaken through April. Just calling out one or two bits and pieces, some positive work on poverty proofing, and that staff training programme is now complete. And it also included staff from Becky's community development section, so it's positive. The same as the work that Russell's been undertaking on producing an equality, diversity and inclusion action plan. If I could just point to paragraph 4.9 as well, and the possibility of entering into another short-term hire agreement with Polesworth School for the use of its sports hall, if the board is happy with that. And just to let members know as well that we've started the process of informal consultation. This is with our staff in respect of the local authority trading company. I can update the board on that if you require. But matters of detail, you've obviously got Russell's expertise at your disposal in the meeting.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions from members on this? Councillor Gosling.
Yep. Just thank them for the report. It's obviously a very positive report in both behalves. I'd like to know more about what poverty proofing entails. It sounds like a sad and kind of a little bit of a tragic thing to have to do in our leisure, but we do welcome it. I think the kind of development of the equality and diversity is really, really important to have an inclusion plan. It's not currently included in the lacto plans that I've noticed, so we'd like to maybe understand a little bit more about that.
Sorry, could you just repeat that last bit? I didn't. About the lacto.
It doesn't seem to carry through the diversity statements.
So the diversity.
Yeah, the diversity inclusion plan. The equality, diversity and inclusion plan. So just some more details around how that will work. Really pleased to see the swimming figures up. Really pleased to see the local app working really well. And yeah, some really, really positives. I think the cooperation, collaboration, the renewed collaboration with Polesworth is really positive. We would like to know some more about the staff consultations. And also, we've got queries about the risk from 2P and whether or not we've got a risk assessment for 2P for the Lacto moving forwards. I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so someone used to speak on poverty. Oh, sorry. I'll take a couple and I'll come back to your points, Jodie. And so, Councillor Smith, Sandra.
I'd just like to congratulate the team really about the lovely activities they put on over Easter. It really looks good. I'm very impressed with that. They did a really varied programme, all ages. And I'm looking forward to seeing how they're going to expand that in the future.
Thank you. Kerry?
Further on to what Jodie's already mentioned about the staffing, I'd like a little bit more information about the casual staff that are coming into service and what that entails. Please.
Right, lovely. So I've got a few points there, so we'll go through. So the poverty proofing, you wanted a bit more on that. Who's the best one to? Right, Russell.
Yeah, of course. So poverty proofing, Children North East have sort of started this work. They've done it in schools in other locations, but I think they're the first leisure/health area that they've been working on, and they're working across Warwickshire County, and they're trying to actively look at proofing activities and wider sort of community things in relation to health, looking at tackling social inequalities in Warwickshire. So working with the leisure services, they're working with the leisure hospital as well, and they're going through a process of going through training with staff to sort of make sure people understand what is poverty, what's the definition of poverty, trying to make it clear that it's not just an income, it's accessibility to activities and all sorts of things as well. Try to understand a bit more about what's happening in this area and their sort of end goals in terms of what they're trying to find out as well. So they've just finished that now with staff, and then they go on to moving on to consultation with staff to do like one-to-one meetings, ask them about the service, how it runs, how it operates, and try and get some learning from that. They'll do customer and community consultations. So we're going to help them to push a survey out. They'll come and speak to people, local groups, communities, etc., and sort of partners in leisure and health. And then off the back of that, they'll give us feedback on what they've found. So they'll give us a report that says, this is what we found, these are some recommendations, and then the last step is a follow-up. So sort of 6 months after, they'll come back and see what we've implemented and how we've changed things. But it's really looking at, I suppose, accessibility to service, making people feel more comfortable accessing service, making sure we promote how accessible we are. And in schools, an example of that is sort of free school meals, where it used to be obvious who was on a free school meal. It was on a register, it was a different colour bag, and then they did the sort of pay scheme where you can put money on a system, and now the school will add money on so people can just buy things without being seen, as one example. There's lots of things in leisure that could apply to in terms of what memberships we have. If people have a bad credit rating and they can't do a direct debit, what options they've got. If someone comes up and wants a concessionary membership, but they have to do it on front desk, that could be quite confrontational, or it could be a barrier to access. And there'll be lots of other things that they'll sort of point out we won't have thought of, or the staff wouldn't have thought of. So it's a process of sort of speaking to everybody, finding out what the best actions are, and then taking it.
Thank you. So, okay.
Yeah, is there any way that we could see some of the report and find?
Yeah,
of course. Either personally or as
It's interesting. It'd be good
Yeah.
to see some summary of what you've done.
If anyone wanted to feed into it, get in touch with the team if you want to as well. Just email me.
Brilliant, thanks.
Thank you very much. Can we pick the equality and diversity one up when we talk about the lactose?
Course.
Thank you. Staff consultation. Simon, you want to say something about that?
I can briefly through you, Chair, if it would help the board. I don't particularly want to drill it down into site by site. I mean, obviously, Russell and I have been out to each of our facilities. We've met with the staff on site. I think it's fair to suggest that there was a mixed reaction. I think that there were some people who were very positive about the development. There were others of our colleagues less so, who were slightly nervous about the step that's being taken. I think that's perfectly understandable, and this is obviously part of a journey to go with them over the next few months. This particular round of consultation clearly was informal. There'll be a formal process to go through. That will pick up all the transfer of undertaking issues there. And in that regard, Russell and I have got our first meeting with HR this week, I think this Friday. So we'll keep the board informed of progress there.
Thank you. Right, thank you. And also we'll pick up 2P as well when we talk about black code. That's great. And we forget, I'll put it down. And we've a question about the casual staff. I'll come to you in a minute, Marion. And somebody want to talk about why do we need so many and who are they and what do we do with them?
Do you want me to? I think, yeah, I'm trying to think. Is it somewhere within the report?
It's there. It's on page. It's 4.7 of the fourth bullet point. It just says we've had a recruitment drive with a number of much needed casual staff have been brought into the service.
Oh yeah. So it's the recruitment surge was sort of linked to the job centre thing at Addiston. We need more bar staff because obviously events are picking up again. So that's one reason for casual staff, and because that's not regular sort of week in, week out, a casual basis works better. And then just to give a bit more workforce resilience on reception, on gym, on swim teachers, on lifeguards, just to make sure the service can be delivered. So, yeah.
Are we training some of these people then to be lifeguards and swimming supervisors?
We run, well, we've got someone that runs courses at the pool that can go on to sessions. But yeah, where we sort of identify specific need and where we identify staff internally, and yeah, we do interview and point out train staff later on.
Good. Well, it's a bit more resilience, yeah.
Sorry, are they being taken on with a limited hours contract, or are they being taken on purely on a work-by-work basis?
Yeah, 0 hours.
Thanks. Marion, you want to speak?
Thank you, Chair. It was just going back to the poverty proofing. We had a meeting of the Health and Wellbeing Working Party the other day where Simon gave a fantastic report, as usual, about sports facility and this poverty proofing. And Becky was involved as well. It's a whole team effort. But within that talks, we eventually came out with Councillor Bernadette Davey, who is in the benefits team, actually said that she would give the Health and Wellbeing Working Party a presentation on all the benefits, because there are some people that think they're on one benefit, so they're entitled to everything, or they don't know what they're entitled to, and they could be entitled to more. And we've invited staff to come along to that as well that might benefit from that. So again, we're trying to work as together again, and we've got quite a good plan going, haven't we, with that poverty proofing again?
Yeah, through you, Chair. I've invited the AUM on the poverty proofing team today to invite them to that. Spoke to all of them. Hopefully someone will turn up, or because they might have to travel quite far, they might tune in virtually.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Andy, and then
just go back to 4.4 with the equality, diversity and inclusion. Are the staff trained in dealing with people with dementia?
anybody answer that?
Through you, Chair. I don't think we are.
There was training through Fit to Futures, wasn't there? Dementia.
Oh yeah, that was very good.
It would be really good if it's not in place. It's something that we would like to see as part of this whole diversity training, that they look at dementia, because obviously just people at certain stages of dementia, fitness is quite a good thing to be involved in.
Yeah, so yeah, I think you'll jog your memory. Yeah, so people that deliver the Fit to Futures, which is like exercise referral scheme, some of those will have been through training through Fit to Futures, but as a general work, currently no. So yeah.
And have the facilities been assessed as dementia friendly?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
Through you, Chair, the answer to that is yes.
Good. Okay, so perhaps you could come back to us at some point about the dementia issue. That would be great. Thank you very much for that. Mark?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to congratulate the team on this report and to bring up item 4.9 about how well the Polesworth School booking has been working out. And I do hope that we can continue to do that for the following 12 months. And also item 4.10, the again Polesworth Fitness Hub. It's remarkable to see that they're now at attendance rates of pre-COVID, 2,150 visits, which is the highest month in the last 5 years. That's remarkable.
Yes.
Just shows that maybe we are getting back to normal-ish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, and yeah, congratulations again to everybody that managed to get that one working in time. Jodie?
Just thinking about the kind of pre-COVID rates, and I know that we were at about 75% pre-COVID, we're doing quite well. Just obviously, it's not a detailed data report, but just wondered if there is an update on that. And I saw something on social prescribing. I'm being able to access. I don't know if we are accessing social prescribing at the moment and how that process works, whether we're getting our fair share, as it were.
Yeah, okay. I'll ask just on that last point. I only heard last week from my own surgery that their primary care network had employed a social prescriber and who would go 1 day a week for each surgery. So something's happening, but I'll ask. Yeah. So first of all, Russell, have you got something on usage rates? Are we anywhere near getting back to where we were?
Following the last meeting, which was in March, there's no great increase since that meeting, but there's obviously action plans in place through the years to try and sort of get the number to creep themselves on through review of member journey in the first quarter, look at the sales journey a bit later on through exercise referral, social prescribing, regular promotions, engagement activity, and a few things as well. So the reason I've not put more detail in this report is because it was sort of the month one of this financial year. So in future, I'm actually more aggressive.
Okay. Do we know how anybody else is getting on in terms of getting back to usage?
No.
Thank you, Chair. At the last meeting, we were in accord with how performance was going nationally in terms of return to facilities. And at that time, we received some information that newer urban facilities were responding better than more rural and or older facilities. And so our performance in that context was relatively good, but obviously, national data isn't coming out all the time. So we'll try and see if we can source some more for the next board meeting.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Becky, have you got something on social prescribing?
Yeah, so there's a couple of strands to social prescribing in terms of the commissioned element. So there's hospital social prescribing, which is the one that's commissioned by County Council. So that's at the George Eliot, Rugby, St Cross and Warwick. And then the community social prescribing is in two parts. So there's parts that's commissioned by the CCG. So that's for Coventry, Rugby and Warwickshire North. So we have social prescribers in all of those areas. So there's 3 in Cov, 2 in Warwickshire North and 1 that covers Rugby. And that's provided by Health Exchange. And then the other element, which is the one that you referred to, so they're the social prescribing link workers, which are attached to the PCN, so the primary care networks, also delivered by Health Exchange. And this service is only provided in Warwickshire North, so that's North Warwickshire and East and Bedworth. Yes, I mean, in terms of, North Warwickshire getting their fair share, there's 5 PCNs in Warwickshire North and all 5 have a link worker. So I would suggest that at the moment it looks like we're not missing out and it's quite an equitable split. But, if anyone wants any further information, I'm happy to kind of have those conversations.
Is that something that's picked up in the Health and Wellbeing Working Plan?
We did have a look at that, and because it's not just the sport that we were talking about mental health, abuse and things like that. So it's a big wider picture with the hospitals involved, and we did think we were on par with other areas. So we have got that on the radar on health and wellbeing.
Good. So we'll look forward to a report on that later as well. Thank you very much. That's great. Any more comments from anyone? Questions? Right, so just going to the recommendation then, around. The board notes and comments on the progress made against the requirements identified in the improved 22-23 leisure facilities improvement plan, through which operational performance is monitored. Proposer, thank you, Councillor Simmons, seconder. Thank you, Councillor Jordan, and all those in favour. Any against? Thank you very much. Item number 7, which is the local authority trading company. Do you want to introduce that?
Thank you, Chair. Again, just briefly from myself, and this further to the deliberations, both within this board and obviously at full council in respect of the local authority trading company. This is bringing this board up to date with some work that actually predates that Russell and his colleagues have been undertaking, looking at a vision and values for the leisure facilities service. But obviously that's come to the fore again, given the commitment that's been made to establish the company. Hence the reason for bringing it to you here. You'll recall from March that establishing a vision for the company was one of the 4 pillars of success for that company. So just to let you know, in terms of the process, Russell and his colleagues, they went back obviously to the corporate plan and to the vision and objectives identified there. The same in respect to the health and wellbeing action plan and your adopted leisure facility strategy. And they've come out with the work that's identified in section 5 onwards in terms of the vision, value and aims. And it's really brought to the board for comment and advice and direction from members. Have we got anything wrong with the things that you want included? And in that respect, it might well be, picking up on Councillor Gosling's point, that we haven't quite reflected exactly where we're at in terms of equality and diversity and inclusion, I should say. There's also the issue, you've got the climate change action plan on the agenda here, and the issue of sustainability as well might be one that you would want to bring out, but that clearly is for the board to determine. So Russell and I are happy to take any comments or advice on this at all.
Thank you. Could you also comment on Councillor Gosling's question about would 2P apply, do you think, in the future?
In the context, through you, Chair, in the context of establishing a local authority trading company, clearly the transfer of undertaking regulations would apply. And that's what Russell and I are meeting our colleagues in human resources about later on this week. And that is a formal process. Clearly, there are some risks associated with that. And we'll be assessing those the same as corporately we will be in terms of asset risk or trading risk or the risk associated with utilities and things like that. But clearly we're very mindful of the fact that the cheaper regulations will apply in this regard.
Could I just reflect on that? Will all those risk factors really, because this is obviously where our concerns with the lacto come back, is that we are increasing an element of risk. Can we ask that those are reported back to the board where most?
Of course, they will all be reported back. At this stage, it's just to get the vision sorted out and that sort of stuff. But yeah, absolutely. At all stages, all the relevant boards will discuss this. We'll probably go through, most things will go through every board as it goes through. So there'll be lots of opportunities. Any other comments or questions from anyone? Yeah, again.
I've got a list.
That's all right.
So I'll just go through the list.
Yeah, do it all now and then.
There we go. Oh God, where did it stop? So I know that these recommendations aren't necessarily finalised. This is just asking for a comment. So presumably this is the start of the process to establishing a concrete vision and value statement. And we were just curious really about what's the process now for taking this further, whether this is our only chance to comment or whether there's opportunity. We've already asked several times for more scrutiny on this or more input on this, whether there is now opportunity to actually kind of get around the table, or for yourself and the shadow chairs to get around the table and discuss this further with officers. One of the things that I think has become clearer now is that we are only discussing the indoor facilities, and I don't think previously that's always been clear, that it's just specifically about the indoor facilities, not the outdoor facilities. And we had concerns around creating barriers of working across those and making sure that actually there is smooth running across all of our facilities, and making sure that those things are still working as collaboratively as possible. And whether these barriers inevitably arise if you've got one team working here and one team working somewhere else, and whether or not we've considered ways to mitigate those barriers and the kind of almost the cost implications of that. We also had, it's kind of, we don't want to, one of the things that we're really concerned about is that it becomes a place-based project. So if you're dividing the off-site and the on-site facilities, that you might end up just being place-based instead of incorporating the wider areas and the wider community. As far as the vision itself is concerned, we would like to see more kind of aspiration. And it's like, what does being the leading provider mean? Because if all the other providers are rubbish, then that doesn't actually tell you a lot about what you are, if you're the leader of something that's not very good. So we would like something more aspirational about kind of making sure that, just more aspirational about it. And I did say I had a list in mind. And kind of thinking about kind of generations and community a little bit more strongly in the actual vision. And what we're actually providing is not just about the good leisure, but it's meeting the needs of the people who are, and the accessibility of this. I'll come back.
Okay.
That's all right. I'll stop there. Let somebody else comment, and then I'll pause.
Just picking up on your point about it's only about indoor, that's not my perception. It just depends. So, for example, the new Polesworth facility may well have outdoor facilities that are included in it as well. I don't think it's specifically indoor. It's whatever's in the documents that are developed for this. I'll just ask Simon about that. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair, absolutely that's correct. I mean, what has been spoken about is establishing a local authority trading company to manage your leisure facilities. If part of your leisure facility function happens to be working collaboratively in respect to the provision of services in outdoor spaces as well, as Russell already talks to community development and other partners as well, then that will be reflected in the specification. So that is where it will be picked up, and that specification will be brought back to members. So, and given that the local authority will own the trading company, and given that it's also responsible for community development services and for your parks and open spaces and sports pitches and that sort of thing, I don't see any reason for the need for barriers to be established in the provision of a coherent leisure-related service. So I would have thought that would be picked up through the specification process and addressed there.
Right. Can I just ask as well on process? So we're being asked just to comment on this. So this is obviously not the final version, because presumably if we're going to comment, somebody's going to take some notice of those. So at some point it will come back, will it, as a proposal? This is what it is to this board. Is that the next step after we've discussed it all?
Again, through you, Chair, if you all decided that you were perfectly happy with it, then we wouldn't be bringing it back.
Okay.
But clearly, if there are issues that members wish to raise, whether it's sustainability, whether it's equality and diversity, whatever it happens to be, more aspiration, more reflection of community, then clearly those are issues that we can work on, and we can bring that back to the next board meeting. If there were a suggestion about a small group of members meeting with Russell and his colleagues, then we could facilitate that as well. I'm not sure that managing these things in a whole board meeting is necessarily the best place to do it. But if there was a small group working with Russell and his colleagues to flesh that and bring that back to the next board, then happy days, absolutely.
Right. Okay.
Just one example that just flashed into my mind about the vision and values thing is consistency of language. I think I understand why it is, but different words are used in different contexts. And I think it's because you've gone back to the different plans, that the council has, and taken out of each of those plans the relevant stuff. But they're written in slightly different language and use different words. And I just think when it's finished, somebody needs to put it all into one set of language and words. I'm not saying this very well.
I think I understand.
Yeah.
Have you got a specific example anywhere? If not, we can pick it up in the group if you want.
There was
The discussion that we were having was around the corporate plan and the language about the targets in the corporate plan don't necessarily translate to the health and wellbeing. They seems to be a slight disjoint just in the language that's used, and they're aiming to the same things.
Yeah.
But I just think to have a consistent threads and the kind of
yeah.
run through would
We
be
can look
useful.
at that when you put it on there. Okay, thank you. Any more comments or whatever?
So are we
Yeah,
proposing
carry
that
on.
we
No, that's fine.
are we proposing that we have a group to discuss this further?
Yeah, I think a small group
Yeah.
would be acceptable. So obviously it should be chair and vice chair and your spokesperson and a couple of the officers. And then we can just bring in all the comments that we've said about diversity, etc. today and just see if we can come up with something. But we'll come back to the next meeting. Is that acceptable to everybody? Everybody happy with that? I'll put that in
Save all my
there.
other comments. Thank you.
Sorry?
Then I'll save all my other comments.
All right. Okay, thank you. Okay, so therefore, oh, sorry, Caroline. Okay.
I was just going to comment about, because obviously I won't be part of that. I just think that it's one of the things that's really valuable in taking forward that vision is that it's come from the staff.
Yes.
And I think that's really important that given that we're going to be going down the road of a local authority trading company, and it's very important that there's engagement and that vision reflects the service and the aspiration that they have as well. And that's inclusive. And that is inclusive with staff. And I think it's really important that they really identify that vision has been taken forward by us.
That's really important. Yeah. Yes, but absolutely. I think anything that we want to add should be seen as building on what they've done and not replacing anything, because this is something that they want and they own. So I don't think there's anything in the vision that's there that we'd want taking out. So we need to recognise that they've got us to a good point and we might just polish it a little bit. So that's great. Thank you for that. That's really important. Anything else? Okay, so if we just go to the recommendation then, I'll just change it slightly. So it says, in order to guide the work of the service staff, the board considers and comments upon the vision and company set of values to the Leisure Facilities Local Authority Trading Company as outlined in the main body of the report. And I'll add to that, and a small group consisting of chair, vice chair, spokesperson and relevant officers meet to make any amendments needed and then come back to the next meeting, and then that version will come back to the next meeting. Everyone happy with that? Anybody who's taking minutes, did you manage to catch that? Thank you very much. Have they got a proposal for that? Thank you, Councillor Humphries. Second, thank you, Councillor Gosling. Those in favour? Anybody against? Thank you. Thank you very much. So we're now on item 6, which is Annesley Workshop Sports Ground. Again, you want to introduce that, Simon?
Thank you, Chair. I'm hoping that this paper is self-explanatory. Proposing as it does to relocate Hornchurch Sports Junior Football Club. It's currently basing the majority of its activity at Arley Recreation Ground, but they've requested to move to Annesley Workshops Sports Ground, where their 11-a-side team currently plays. They have some logistical issues, which were detailed in the report on site at Arley Recreation Ground. And ordinarily, we wouldn't bring that to the board. We would just get on and deal with it. 2 reasons in this case for bringing it to yourselves for determination. A, it's contrary to a recommendation in your playing pitch strategy, which proposes that we retain Annesley Workshop Sports Ground for cricket only. I think that was right at the time, but you know, it no longer is, certainly from the context from which I view it. And the other reason is that in order to draw down some external funding to enable the club to undertake some work, so there are no financial implications for the authority, they require a slightly longer term, what is in effect extended hire agreement. That's all it is, but branded as a service level agreement. And just to check that the board is happy for us to pursue that. And if you're happy with that principle, We'll pick that up, detail it, and then obviously get that approved by chair, vice chair, and opposition spokesperson. So that's the reason for bringing it here, Chair.
Thank you. Can I just be clear on the first point that you made? Is this going to interfere with cricket at this ground? Are the cricket club going to be able to continue as they are at the moment?
Absolutely, Chair. In actual fact, it's not only used by Annesley Cricket Club, but also by Corley Cricket Club. They base their third team there. Annesley Cricket Club is a long-term hire of that ground, and for a long time they've actually done their own works on that site. The cricket pitches, it's very technical stuff. They've been happily coexisting with Haunchwood in respect of its 11-a-side. They understand the proposals that are made here, and there's no reason for it to cut across their activity on the site at all. It'll still be used for cricket.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on this one? Jodie?
It's not. I generally support this as a way of solving the problems. It does concern me that now we're going to see a reduction in football availability in Arley, and there is a transport issues accessing this because a lot of our teams, especially our girls' teams, played for Haunchwood. So we're going to see a huge reduction in our offer locally in Arley, and I just wonder if there's anything that we can do to kind of mitigate that.
Right. What will happen to the space that's left behind from Haunchwood moving from Arley? Don't know whether to look at Russell or Simon or even Steve.
I'll see what they're saying.
Through you, Chair, I'm not sure why you'd want to look at any of us. They're a far more attractive prospect. But picking up the point from Councillor Gosling, obviously Haunchwood anticipates taking all of its teams with it, and so that those users can still participate, and obviously there will be transport arrangements to a different site. But they've reassured us that use will be replicated at Annesley. Clearly, it might be an issue for some people locally, and we absolutely understand that. And there might be ways and means that we can explore. I mean, obviously, the land will still be available at Arley Recreation Ground. There are other sites in Arley as well, where there's the playing of formal sport. And clearly, we wouldn't want to prejudice anything, whether that's in terms of girls' football or whatever it happens to be. So we'll continue to keep that on the radar and endeavour to deal with that.
So there's still going to be facilities at Arley for clubs that want to hire the ground.
That's correct, Chair. Obviously, there's a long tradition of Haunchwood Sports hiring that space, but the space will still exist, and we can still mark it out for the playing of formal sports. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Okay. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Right. Okay. Oh, so
Recommendation.
yes. You want to move the recommendation? Thank you.
Sorry, just will there be any loss of income in Arley for the Arley Sports Fields, or are they not part of our remit?
Well, it is part of our remit, but as I assume that if anybody else wants to hire it, we'll be getting additional income. So
that's correct, Chair. And through you, there will be a marginal loss of revenue income to the Borough Council, which we've highlighted in the financial implications section. If we're entering into a slightly longer term service level agreement with Haunchwood in return for it generating lots of improvements on a site owned by the Borough Council, to its pitches, to its ancillary accommodation through the benefit of external funding. We're talking about £15,000 worth of works there. There'll be a minor reduction in their hire fees of that site, which we think is entirely appropriate, given the voluntary endeavour that they're putting into that site. So there'll be a minor loss of income from the hire of pitches.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Just a quick question. Is there the likelihood of any smaller football groups actually going to Arley once Haunchwood have moved away? Are they queuing, in other words, are they queuing up to use that pitch? Or is it just purely Haunchwood?
Through you, Chair, recently the predominant, in actual fact, probably only hire of that space has been Haunchwood, because they've had so many teams on that particular site. Whether it will tease out other potential users, I don't know directly, but obviously I can have a word with a colleague, but Councillor Gosling might know.
I was just going to say, there is another football club operates in Arley that has been working with Evan for the Borough Council to develop their site. And at the moment, my concern is they don't have any girls' teams on their site at all at the moment. And actually, one of the concerns is if they do relocate, which will obviously be great for the Borough Council, it will leave the land that they're on at the moment weaker because they are supposed to be moving forward with a plan to improve the land that they're on at the moment, but I believe there's no contract signed. So there is a conflict whereby one piece of land might not benefit from this decision. But I do think it's just how it works out. But hopefully they will pick up the football side for it. But I think it'll be up to them which land they decide to occupy in the end.
Yeah, I think it's. I understood before that we've got quite a lot of pressure on football pitches around North Warwickshire generally. So it's quite possible that once people realise if Holchwood moves, that there's some space, we might get people who want to use that facility. I take the point that because Holchwood have been quite a good tenant, if you like, and have done quite a lot of work on that ground, which of course they're going to transfer if they move to doing some work at Ansley. So it's our ground. We need to keep it in a decent condition. So I assume that's what we'll do. So, but it'd be good to keep it on. Obviously, you're local there, so to keep an eye on what's happening, and obviously for the team to look around and see if we can get other sports teams that want to use it. Fantastic. We can get some more involvement. Thank you. So yes, Councillor Singh.
Just the Holchwood Sports Football Club, would they need a long-term lease to get some funding to improve the ground?
Through you, Chair, the answer to that is no. And in discussions with the junior sports club, it's not ready for that anyway. That's not what it's interested in. It would be going for small grant funding through the Football Foundation, for which it just needs the 2-year service level agreement, and that's all that it's interested in at this moment in time.
Okay, it's over. It has been proposed by Councillor Simmons, the recommendation, which is there. I have to read it in. The board considers and determines that the request from Holchwood Sports, the Junior Football Club, to locate the teams to Ansley Workshop Sports Ground in order to meet the immediate facility needs, and the proposal to prepare a service level agreement with Holchwood Sports Junior Football Club to enable it to apply for and secure external investment in the site be approved, subject to the content of the SLA being agreed by the Chairman, Vice Chairman and Opposition Spokesperson for the board prior to it being signed by both parties. So that's been proposed. Have I got a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Parker. All those in favour? Thank you. Any against? No. Thank you very much. So moving on then to item 9. Item 9, which is the climate policy action plan. Olivia here. Who's going to speak to us now. Thank you very much.
So the climate change action plan, this report presents the first draft of the plan that we've been working on for some time. It sets out the proposed actions that we are proposing to take to sort of adapt and mitigate climate change, and it also proposes a public consultation and then outlines the suggested next steps forward for that.
Thank you. And we've got the chairman of this group with us, haven't we, Councillor Jordan? So perhaps you'd like to say a few words as well.
Thank you very much. Highly unexpected, but thank you. Yes, we've been meeting, admittedly via Zoom, but we've been meeting over the last few months. This is a plan that we came up with, had a consensus of opinion on it. We're now putting it to the board to see how well or how bad it's taken, with a view to introducing this to all the boards. So it's a long process. Climate change, we do have to plan for it, but it's a long process, but we do have to integrate it into all the boards, like community environment, resources, planning, everything. It will affect everything. But yeah, the plan's in front of you. Please feel free to comment, have a go at us, or whatever.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Well, I have to say, when I read this, it's a very readable report and it's very practical. And I think, clear about what we can do, what's within our control, and how we can influence people that work with us. So, I was very encouraged by it, actually. I think it was good. Any other comments from anyone?
Sorry, this is trivial.
That's all right.
I didn't think it was a good opening to have a picture of Himalayan balsam flowing over the side of a river when that is an invasive foreign plant.
Oh,
That we should be trying to see the back of.
Once must have, I thought it was a willow.
Yes,
It was just a thought.
Yes.
It was me having read my plant catalogues recently.
Well, thank you for that. That's good. We'll take that. We've put a different photo on. Thank you, Jodie.
I'd just like to thank everybody that we've worked with on this. And I think I'd especially like to give credit to Barry Lees, who's obviously not with us any longer, but worked really hard on this and was a really good chair for this before Mark was. And the officers, I think, have done a brilliant job of bringing this forward. There's been a huge amount of debate from kind of very different arms. And to actually narrow down all of that discussion and actually put it into something that's, as you say, very readable, very approachable, and something that can actually significantly make a difference, I think has been a really good, an amazing feat, actually. So really, really well done. We would like to kind of, and I think throughout our meetings, one of the things that's become really clear is this can only be a success and can only have the maximum impact it can have if we have the partners on board.
Yeah.
And I think that's really clear with a lot of the things that we do. And I think being strong with those partners. And we would like, within that, an opportunity during the consultation for some of those partners to maybe either make pledges or to actually kind of input where they see their role to be, so that we can start actually making sure that we've got the commitments from our partners that we're going to need to be able to make it deliverable. And alongside that, we were considering, we understand it's a minimum 4-week consultation, but obviously if we want, the more consultation we have, the more input that we have on this, and the more partners, including the public, that we have on this, the more successful it's going to be. Therefore, we would like to propose that we have at least a 6-week consultation, and also looking at the accessibility of that consultation, of who we're going to be looking at, whether we can engage schools in the consultation, whether we can, what kind of bodies that we can actually engage to make sure that we are pulling in those partners and those voices, as this is obviously a long-term issue and it's going to be something that pushes on to the future and hopefully improves and gets stronger as we move forward with it. So kind of looking at how we can really develop that consultation to make sure it's purposeful.
Thank you. Anything over the 6-week consultation throw everything out of kilter, or is that?
No, that's fine.
Yes. So lovely. So, and also the marks that are made, make sure that we get the reach on the consultation and some commitment from partners.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So if we add those comments I've just made to changing the photograph on the front, then those are some specific things that we would like to see. So in that case, if we could, I'm just looking around to see if there's any more comments. We go to the recommendations that we propose any amendments, which we've done, or additions to the current draft action plan. That the draft action plan, including any revisions, be public and comments invited from the public and other stakeholders. That's the consultation, which we just talked about. That the member climate change group considers the responses to the public consultation, amends the action plan accordingly, so that the final version can be brought back to this board at its next meeting for approval and adoption. It's not going to interfere with the next board, is it, if it's 6 weeks?
Potentially, but I'll check that.
Right, so it just put a little caveat on that one, because it may not be the next board. Steve?
I mean, it just strikes me that this will need to be constantly reviewed, but regularly reviewed, and therefore, if you wanted something back with that sort of a readout of the consultations, sit in that first initial 4-week, but then you could then have it back in September or various other points if you wanted to do a slightly wider piece of work with schools and various other things and produce drafts as you go along. So I don't want to create endless amounts of work for colleagues, but the balance there isn't between getting something that's published and states that intention, but that becomes something that's reviewed.
Okay, that's great. So wherever we're at the next meeting of this board, we'll bring that back. But obviously there might be a continuation of effort after that to get more final report to the climate change group, who will then, they'll probably be considering the responses as they come in anyway. So that would work. So I think we're okay with the recommendations as they are. So have a proposal for that then. Thank you, Councillor Parker, seconder. Councillor Rose, thank you very much. All those in favour? Any against? Carried. Thank you very much. And I believe that's the end of the minute. Thank you very much.